everyone. Oh, I think my mic. Oh yeah, my mic seems to be okay. So, hey Richard, how's it going? Ladies and gentlemen, please find your seat. The show is that from what is it called? Well, what was it called? Muppets Vision 3D, I think. Is that what that's from? I think, or is that just a general reference to finding your seats? Knowing you, it wouldn't surprise me if that was from Muppet Vision 3D, but I don't know. Okay. I wouldn't be surprised if they said something similar with Muppet Vision 3D, but I don't exactly remember how they told people to go to their seats, but I just said it out of nowhere. Oh, okay. Hey David, I hope you're doing well. So, this is going to be one of the how do I describe this live stream? So this is going to be very similar to the one that I did going over PlayStation's latest financials that I did a few months back at the beginning of the summer. Except this time it's going to be a little bit more loose with what I'm going to present and how I'm going to talk about it, because for that video I took like copious notes and I kind of presented it like a presentation. But this time, because I'm not gonna have the camera on, this time we're just gonna like kind of sit back and just chill. And the reason for this is because I have a lot to say about just not only with Halo. Like I don't really have a whole lot to say. I say that, but then I go on and on and on. At least for right now, I don't think I have a whole lot to say about the Halo remake in general, because it kind of looks exactly what I expected it to look like, which is it looks like an Unreal Engine 5 version of Halo CE. It's just kind of like, okay, like it definitely looks like a UE5 remake. It it reminds me a lot of like the traditional remakes that a lot of companies are doing nowadays, where they don't really make that great of an effort to preserve the original artistic intent of those games, and instead they try to make it as glossy and stereotypically beautiful as possible. When I look at the footage, and we're going to look at the footage just because there are some things I do want to point out that did kind of make me raise an eyebrow when I was watching the Silent Cartographer demo they put up. But when I look at it, it reminds me a lot of how I feel about the Demon Souls remake, where I think on a technical level, the Demon Souls remake is really good, but it does not at all have the vibe that I associate with Demon Souls, where it just really lacks that oppressive, bleak look and color palette that it has. And then as another thing that they screw with, they really just butchered a lot of the music, just completely overproduced in the Demon Souls remake. But as a game, I really like the Demon Souls remake. I think out of the two versions, as far as gameplay and game flow, I think remake is so clearly the superior game, just from the loading screens and some of the quality of life adjustments that they've made to it, that it's awesome in that respect. But as far as artistic intent, I have to give the edge to the original Demon Souls, because I just think the art direction is so much better in that game. And looking at I hate calling it Campaign Evolved because I think that's such a stupid name. Looking at Combat Evolved Remake, it reminds me a lot of that, where I look at it and I go, I don't really see the original artistic intent here with the color palette and some of the weapon designs, and especially with the I can't I know this is probably it sounds very nitpicky to just the casual observer, but when I look at the Needler and I see an ammo count on the Needler, I kind of go, I think maybe they think that we're just stupid. It's like the whole point of the Needler is you can see how much ammo is on the gun just from looking at it with the needle sticking out of it. But then they put an ammo counter on top of that, and it just looks silly. It's like, I guess 343 just doesn't really. And yes, I'm gonna look. This is another thing with the Halo remake, because I've seen some people be very excited about it and very hopeful, and I just want to remind people that this is still 343 at its core. I don't care what kind of name changes they go through, but I don't care. I don't give a shit that they're saying Halo Studios, and like, no, they're trying to kind of wash away the stink of 343 after 4 or 5 Infinite, and now they want to go and pillage the old shit in order to go, look, guys, we're actually a competent studio. We can make a really good Halo game as long as it's not one that's written by us, because our writing is trash. But I think, like you said, Richard, there's not going to be an online mode. And that, to me, I'm pretty sure I know the reason behind that. And it's because I would bet that they are going to release a standalone multiplayer platform for Halo, and maybe just call it Halo, the Halo multiplayer or something like that, and try to do what they did with Infinite, but with, I would assume, much better support this time around, because the support for Infinite's multiplayer was notoriously bad. And they'll probably, again, I would assume so, but I don't know, given that it's 343. But I would assume they would take some of the lessons that they learned from Halo Infinite's multiplayer and then apply that to this platform right out of the gate. Include things right out of the gate like Forge. Make it so the battle pass isn't stupid. Can't you just do that with the MCC? You can play on any map for 1 through 4. Yeah, but they're not going to put Master Chief Collection on PS5, because this is another thing. This is why I called this like the Xbox's final death rattle, where you would assume that the premiere of a new game in your franchise, like the reason your console is still around to this very day, the reason your console got its jumpstart was because in Xbox's case, it was Halo. And you would normally, in like a non screwed up Xbox, where we're in a world where Xbox is not just this skin mask for Microsoft gaming, you would assume that you would reveal this and your emphasis would be all about what are you going to do for Xbox players. But from the footage that we saw, and especially with the image of, and again, I'll go to this image here because it is something. Like I said in the post, I think this image, this belongs, it's not exactly this particular, but it's more like a widescreen. This belongs in a museum. This single image right here. It's not the exact one I put up on the channel, but it's close enough, where you have the community manager out here for the key franchise for Xbox, and they make the guy wear a PlayStation shirt and say things like, from now on, Halo is going to be on PlayStation going forward. Basically, get used to it, suckers. I again, just it really is to me like a stunning image. Just seeing Halo in the background, Master Chief in the background, and then you have the community manager wearing a PlayStation shirt and being forced to say, we can't wait for Halo to be on PlayStation. Dude, I've been looking at this image, not like fully for the last few days. I've glanced at it, and each time I look at this and I think about Master Chief, and to be fair, we all knew this was coming because we all knew from the leaks. This has been rumored for so long that they were going to bring a Combat Evolved remake to PS5. But I think I'm surprised like more Xbox people are not just livid over this. Maybe they've reached the final stage of grief, which is acceptance. and they've just accepted it at this point that Microsoft is just like done trying, like even trying to make Xbox a competitive console platform. They're just much more interested now in making it just this, again, just this like gluttonous blob of IP that just go everywhere and just because to me, like I called the live stream like the final death, Xbox's final death rattle. And if you don't know what a death rattle is, it's like when you're like when somebody is like dying and they're like struggling to breathe and they have that like gurgle sound. I don't know if you've been around. I don't know how many of you have seen like hospice videos where, with the family's permission, like for educational purposes, they'll film some of the people they have in their care in like the final stages of dying, and you can like hear how they die. That's what I associate, like I when I see this particular thing, when I see that Halo is now going to be on PS5, that to me is like the death rattle, where it's just, it's done. It's just, you can't get any more sacred cow than this. And again, yeah, Xbox is fucked after the 30% margins that revealed. Oh, we'll get there. Oh, don't worry, we'll get there. But this is just such a, you know, when I was younger, maybe in middle school, and I was playing things like Halo 3 and Gears of War, like Horde mode on my buddy's 360, um, I never imagined this day would come. Like, if I could go back in time and tell my, like, 14, 15-year-old self that one day, there will come a day where Master Chief will be on PlayStation, I would not have believed it. I kind of would have just sat there. I probably would have laughed in my own face and been like, yeah, right, okay. Dude, even like 3 years ago, if you had told me that Halo is going to be on PS5, I would have laughed in your face. If you had said one day that Forza, Gears, Microsoft Flight Simulator, and Halo were going to be on PS5, I would I would be like, what? Like, no, that's not happening. Come on. But here we are. The day has finally arrived. Like, imagine telling that to your friends that were Xbox fans or the Xbox fanboys. Yeah, it's I mean, like I said, I think a lot of them, and like I feel like I'm more upset by this than they are, which is strange considering I don't even own an Xbox. Like, I am more upset at the idea that Halo is going to be on PS5. Like, I really don't, I look, this is a move that directly benefits me because I don't own an Xbox. I play primarily on like PC, PS5, Switch 2. That's what I play on. I play on like almost everything except an Xbox because I don't see the point in buying one because there just aren't that many compelling exclusives. And anything I can get, I can just get it on PC, or I can just subscribe for like a month on Game Pass and get it there and save money. They have made it so easy to avoid their own platform, and this is like here where this is where we are now, where their player base has eroded so much to the point where they now have to put their flagship, their defining franchise on PS5. It is wild to me, but I look at, I just see things like Gears, Forza, Microsoft Flight Simulator, Halo. I assume Fable is going to be on it as well at some point, but I don't like it. I personally don't like it, even though this is a move that benefits me. I don't like it. I am somebody, and again, I've said this many times, but I will die on this hill. I will die on the hill that I think console exclusives are a very good thing. I think they are a healthy thing for platforms. But what I've said this before as well, and we'll get into this later because once again, Xbox has opened their fucking mouths. They can't help themselves but open their mouths and say stupid things to now where it just, especially about exclusives, where because Xbox is so terrible at getting people to buy their consoles and getting people to buy their exclusives. Now they have to try to change the narrative around exclusives in order to make themselves not look like complete losers and make themselves look like the good guys in all this. Where they say things like exclusives are antiquated and whatnot. Like, I might as well go to that first, considering, fuck this. I'm gonna go to that first. I'll get to the Matt Booty thing later, but there was this thing, and if you want to know a way to trigger me, this is how you do it. You say things like Sarah Bond going out there and saying that the idea of exclusives has become antiquated. And she's specifically talking about blockbuster games, like big games. And it's like, okay, you're talking about like massive platforms as well. There is a difference, and I think Sarah Bond is like trying to mix in the big platform games that are out there with some of the console exclusives that are not big platform games, and trying to kind of combine the two and go, well, exclusives are antiquated. And it's like, no, like, okay, sure. I agree that Call of Duty, Minecraft, Fortnite, and Roblox being limited to one console is antithetical. I'll agree with her on that. But the idea that exclusives have become antiquated is just factually not true. Because that latest Pokemon game just did really, really well. And it's only available on Switch and Switch 2. You have to go buy a Nintendo console to get it. Ghost of Gote did really fucking well. Better than even I expected, honestly. And it's only available on the PS5. It's only available on one console. You have multiple Nintendo exclusives from this year doing really well. You have multiple PS5 games from this generation doing really well. So it just seems to me, again, if I'm looking at this, the people that are saying that the idea of exclusives are a bad thing or antiquated, or saying silly things like when everybody plays, we all win, even though they still do timed console exclusives. So that already just cuts the legs out from their argument of trying to say games going everywhere is the best thing and games being exclusives are bad or antiquated. And it's kind of like, so you're lying. Like, you're lying. you're because Forza Horizon 6 is going to be an exclusive on Xbox, console exclusive on Xbox for God knows how long, which it should be. Like, I am okay with that. I am perfectly okay. If they weren't saying these like really stupid things, I would be perfectly okay with Forza Horizon 6 being on Xbox only. Keep it there. I don't care. Like, dude, I don't have an Xbox. I want you to keep it to Xbox. I want you to keep Gears to Xbox. I want you to keep Halo to Xbox. I want you to give me a reason to buy your console and engage in your platform and keep the identity of the Xbox going around. But again, Xbox Microsoft Gaming wearing Xbox as a skin suit, a skin mask, just don't seem that interested in wanting you to play on Xbox anymore. Which to me, and again, I don't care what kind of narrative they spin. I don't care if my opinion becomes like out of touch, out of date as the years go on. I will die on the hill that console exclusives from these guys is good, is healthy. It breeds competition. It tries, because, like, again, I hate this notion that now we're gonna have to pick, either Xbox is bowing out and we only really get one option as far as the more like high end non Nintendo stuff, and just PlayStation, which that by itself is a bad thing because now PlayStation is going uncontested in that market, and we all know what happens when PlayStation is uncontested. It's a bad thing. Then you have Nintendo, which is more focused on like lower tech, family friendly kind of thing. And then Xbox, you have this amorphous blob that's just on everything. So the whole console market is just like weird. Like, it's just weird, and I don't like it, and there's no competition. And a big thing that could have kept that going is if Xbox had just stuck with doing console exclusives. because that is what they were trying to do at the beginning of this gen. That is why they bought all of these studios, so they can have a library of games that were exclusive to their platform. The problem is, one, Xbox's leadership sucks. Two, Xbox's pipeline management sucks. Three, they flew way too close to the sun and gobbling up all of these publishers and all of these developers in such a short amount of time that Microsoft, all of this attention was put on Xbox when they never had this much attention before at Microsoft. And you especially have the evil eye of Satya Nadella and his like AI obsessed shit. And now his focus was on Xbox. And just when Xbox was right there, they bit way too much than they could chew, bit off way too much than they can chew with Activision Blizzard. And now Satya Nadella is going, okay, 30% margins. There you go. You got to hit those. The CFO, Amy Hood, I think she called them accountability margins, which I will say, and before I get to the comments, and I see the stuff in the chat being put up, to a very slim degree, I can understand Satya, and I can't believe I'm gonna say this. This reminds me of when I like went to bat for Hiroki Totoki at PlayStation, the CEO of Sony, where he looked at PlayStation and was like, "What the hell are you guys doing with this live service thing? Why is Bungie so shit at managing money?" I was fully sympathetic to that because I was like fully on like, it's bad when I am agreeing with a Sony executive and going like, "Oh yeah, like PlayStation, yeah, get your fucking shit together, guys." I can kind of get it with Satya Nadella and Amy Hood to a very slim degree. I'll give them like a little like salt piece of like understanding that it's like, look, we invested so many billions of dollars into Xbox. I think at this point, like with all this shit that they've done, they've probably invested like around like 75 to 80 billion dollars, I imagine, in Xbox. And it's like, dude, you got to start making us some fucking money. I don't care if it wasn't all, because one of the things that a lot of Xbox faithful like to say is, well, it was an all cash transaction for Activision Blizzard. You can't, no, even if it was an all cash acquisition where they don't have Activision Blizzard on their books, no one spends that amount of money and then they go like, okay, now back to the status quo where we just keep our eye off of Xbox. No, that's not going to happen. Especially with Satya Nadella being all like AI gung ho about that now. So I really don't want to hear it from Sarah Bond. I especially don't want to hear it from Phil Spencer or Matt Booty that this idea that like exclusives are outdated, they're antiquated, they're bad for gaming. They're like, what's the when life gives you lemons, make lemonade? In this case, they're like, when life gives you lemons, try to convince the world that lemonade is bad. Actually, I was telling Ian about this morning. I don't know how many of you have watched the Fall of the House of Usher on Netflix. It's a good miniseries. I recommend it if you haven't checked it out yet. But there's a monologue where the main character talks about when life gives you lemons, you do everything in your power to force lemons to be a thing. You try to get everybody to be on board with lemons, and you make lemons a hugely successful product, and then you sell it off and like patent it and then make it so nobody can market lemons again, and then move on to lemonade from there. And that's kind of similar to like what I think about with Xbox, where they're like, when life gives you lemons, try to like sell the lemons as hard as possible and convince the world that lemonade is a bad thing. So, but anyway, let's get to some comments in the chat. My family had a 360 some time ago, which I use for games like Lost Odyssey, which is a very underrated game in my opinion, Dragon Age, Dead or Alive 4, as well as Rock Band, where I was always the singer. Yeah, the first half of the 360 is some of my favorite gaming ever. Like I never owned a 360 during that time. I owned one afterwards, but I loved the beginning of the 360 days. Like everything from like 2005 to 2008 or 2009, loved it. I have so many fond memories. Even after that, even when their first party lineup started to kind of decline with the introduction of the Kinect, I used to go to one of my best friend's houses after school all the time, and we would play 360 all the time. We would play Halo split screen. We would play Horde mode in Gears. We would play the Forge mode in Reach. We would take turns playing Fallout 3 and Oblivion. We would play Crackdown. Just all this good stuff. I would watch him play Fable. I love the 360. I honestly like with the news of this, with them like making Halo on PS5, like it's when I think about things like the 360, that is why I am so annoyed to see Xbox just shove everything they have onto PlayStation. And it's like, dude, they just do not give a shit about their identity anymore. And I have a great love for that like original. I have like a deal. I don't know about love, but I have a great deal of respect for the original Xbox and the library of exclusives that it has. I have a very, very huge fondness for the early 360 days and the library of exclusives, both first and third party, that they were able to get out of that. And it just makes me sad when I see this. And what sucks too is that I even when I was at my most obnoxious when it came to like console fanboyism with PlayStation, probably like at the beginning of the PS4 gen, because that was such like a massive win for us after like years of PlayStation being on the back foot. I never wanted Xbox to fully go away. I never wanted Xbox's full identity to just be completely just scrubbed over. And now that day is here, and that makes me sad. But I love the early 360 days. I love. Hey Deadweight, how's it going? I really love the early 360 days. I have such a fondness for them that I mean, even like as I'm sitting here now and thinking about it, like I get this like warm feeling in my heart when I think about sitting cross-legged on the floor in front of my friend's TV in his bedroom, us playing Forge in Halo Reach, and just like playing things like dodgeball. And like he made this one map that was like wrapped around the flagpole where you would drive the warthogs around this flagpole and try not to fall off the hazard, the environment and stuff like that. Like I love that kind of stuff. Loved it. And now that's all over, which makes me sad. Actually, like I was talking to that very friend just a couple days ago about all this, and I asked him like, would you consider getting like Halo the game? And he goes like, no, because there's no multiplayer. And it's like, yeah, it's not gonna be Combat Evolved multiplayer that's gonna come out. It's gonna be the fucking 343 Halo Infinite version of the multiplayer that's gonna come out, which on its own is not a bad thing, but considering how screwed up a lot of systems were in that multiplayer, I just don't have a lot of faith in 343 really bringing like trying to make, because again, this is what they're doing. They're trying to make, this makes me so so irritated. They're trying to make Halo culturally relevant again by putting it on PlayStation. That's how far Halo has fallen when they have, excuse me, when they have to put it on, they have to put it on another platform and make their community manager go out in a shirt and say, our big announcement today, besides Combat Evolved Remake, is the fact that it's going to be on PlayStation from this day forward. It's like, fuck, dude. Shit. Anyway, Richard says, kind of ironic that the non-Xbox fans are disappointed. As someone that only owned a Wii during the 360 and PS3 era, I remember getting made fun of. I can't imagine telling those people. I mean, it's funny because I was thinking about this morning. I used to get made fun of a lot for buying a PS3 over a 360 when I finally had to reach that decision where it's like, do I get a PS3 or do I get 360 when I finally had the money? And I remember telling people like, I'm going to buy a PS3 because I really want to play God of War 3. And I got made fun of so much by certain people. They were saying like, oh, why are you getting that gay station instead? I think that's probably like the funniest insult in hindsight that I heard about PlayStation, like trying to mock me. They're like, why are you getting that gay station 3 instead of the 360? And I was like, because of the games. Like I don't like I've already played the shit that I can get on 360, but I can't get God of War 3 on 360. I can't get Uncharted on 360. Yeah. I can't get those. But now that's why I was so smug at the beginning of the PS4 gen, because I got made fun of so much for playing on PlayStation throughout high school. And then when after high school, when the whole like Xbox One debacle versus PS4 just blasting the shit out of them at E3 2013. That's why I was like so riding so high on it. It became pretty obnoxious, even I must admit. But yeah, it's just funny. It's kind of funny to think about now. But Neo's been only on PlayStation. Neo 3 is coming on PlayStation 5 right now. There's never been any announcement for a PC port of Neo, as far as I know. I think Neo 2 is on. I think I could have sworn they ported Neo to PC, but maybe I'm wrong. I'm pretty sure Neo is on PC. Yeah, Neo 1 and 2 are on PC, but they were, I think Neo at least was a console exclusive for a while. And I think Neo 2 came on PC day 1. But I know Neo 3 is a console exclusive for PS5, which again, no, like console exclusives are not antiquated. They drive sales. Okay? Like, and Neo, even though it's not a PlayStation funded game, maybe co-funded because it's on PS5 exclusively as a, like for now as a console. Neo is a game that people more associate with PlayStation just because of that. I mean, shit, Neo was in Astrobot. So Neo is a game that a lot of people associate with PlayStation, even though it is technically also on, both of them are also on PC. But I like, the point is, and I know the point you're trying to make, David, as well, is like Neo is not going to be some big system selling thing, but it adds flavor to your console lineup when you see something like Neo on there and go, oh, that's something that's a Souls-like that I can't get anywhere else. That makes it unique. And especially if you're a big fan of Neo and don't have a good PC for the game, if you want to play Neo 3, you got to buy a PS5 for it. And I'm willing to bet there's maybe at least a couple people out there that don't have a really good PC, but go, yeah, I guess I'll shoot, for a PS5 this time. And there you go. PlayStation just got another captured player right there because of Neo 3. So this could have been a good opportunity, tying it back to Halo, for Xbox to go. It's only going to be available on Xbox forever. Combat Evolved Remake. But because their market share is so bad because of their decisions over the last like 12 years. Yeah. Anyway, I've been one of those people who would have bought an Xbox just to play a new Banjo and Conquer. And again, this, excuse me, taking a sip of water. This again speaks to how poor Microsoft's project pipeline is, where this is something they could have done so long ago, to the point where they did not need to have Rare get involved and make Banjo-Kazooie or Conquer. If Rare is that busy with Sea of Thieves, and now was busy with Everwild before that got canceled, there are so many, and this is what I said in the Banjo-Kazooie video I did, there are so many talented indie developers out there that would leap at the opportunity to work on a new Banjo or a new Conquer and do it justice. I'm willing to bet there are at least 10 indie studios, for each franchise, that could do it. Unique indie studios for each franchise that could do it. But Xbox lacks so much vision, lacks so much competent leadership, lacks so much, like, I don't know, just basic common sense when it comes to taking care of their IP, that they just haven't done it. And this is why Xbox, like, now, after swallowing up so many things, they basically just become this graveyard of IP. And it's gotten so much worse after them acquiring Bethesda and Activision Blizzard. There are so many franchises that are going to stay in the dirt because Xbox now just wants to make the big winners. They just want to make Candy Crush and Call of Duty and Minecraft and Forza and Halo and Gears and Elder Scrolls and Fallout, like just big names. That's what they really want. So, hell, the Spider-Man 1 movie game and Craven exclusive levels on the original Xbox. Yeah, I forgot about that. See, that's another thing. Is that, I mean, that's a different case where that was also back then on the original Xbox where they cared more about getting exclusive content, like Jade Empire and Chronicles of Riddick and Knights of the Old Republic. But I get your point, David. Hell, do another JRPG like Lost Odyssey as an Xbox exclusive IP. I would have thought, before they closed Tango, because Phil Spencer likes to go on stage at Tokyo Game Show and say, hello Japan, blah blah blah. We're at Xbox. We love Japan. Yada yada yada. And then they go close Tango GameWorks after Tango GameWorks just made their best game of the generation in Hi-Fi Rush. I would argue Hi-Fi Rush is the best game, the best Xbox game from this generation. It's not an exclusive anymore, but as far as stuff that they worked on internally, that to me is like by far their best game. Like I really, really like Hi-Fi Rush. I would have thought maybe that would have been a good idea where they would at least like try to take another crack at a JRPG. Maybe work with Sakaguchi again at Mistwalker on something. Maybe or re-release Lost Odyssey, re-release Blue Dragon. I don't know, do something to show. Don't just give us lip service that you give a shit about Japan. Actually do something that means something. For all the shit that I give PlayStation for abandoning Japan for the most part, still got Team Asobi. They still got Polyphony. They got Sony XDev Japan over there throwing out good ideas like Marvel Tokon. They still got something. It's not a crazy amount, but it's something. Meanwhile, you have Xbox, where they had a Japanese studio, and then they sold it to Krafton, so they wouldn't kill it. All of that talent from Hi-Fi Rush would have just gone down the shitter. But why won't you get a lemon with Toyota of Orange? I don't get that. Hell, Tales of Vesperia started out as a 360 exclusive. That's right. For its remaster, it came to other consoles. That's right. Xbox used to be big on third-party exclusives for a very long time. For a very long time, they were you could only play things like Mass Effect and BioShock Infinite and Oblivion on 360 as console exclusives. Before they came to PC, with Oblivion, it was on PC at 360 day one, but with BioShock, with, Mass Effect. So, again, it seems to be like Xbox, they were the biggest ones that did third-party exclusives, which, again, I was perfectly fine with. I was perfectly fine with them not releasing BioShock on PS3 or Mass Effect on PS3 or Oblivion on PS3. I was fine with that because that breeded competition. And then you have PlayStation kind of like punching back where they got Metal Gear Solid 4. Still to this very day, the only way you can play Metal Gear Solid 4 legally, you hook up your PS3 and you buy it. That's the only way. But now it's just, this is why it also annoys me when I see Xbox going, well, consoles exclusives, they're pretty bad, man. They're pretty antiquated. Like, brother, like, you used to be the biggest peddlers of them. Like, don't give me that shit. Like, I don't want to hear that shit. So, anyway, Deadwade, now I'm just concerned about PlayStation not having true competition. So, this is another point I was going to get to. PlayStation, the last time they went in fully, like, almost uncontested and thought they were, like, the hot shit because they didn't really have the crazy amount of competition, we got the PS3. And now, the PS3, at the end of its life cycle, I would say technically, especially compared to what comes later with the PS4 and the PS5, with how fast those systems were by comparison, from like a speed technology perspective, the PS3 is fucking garbage. It's terrible. It downloads super slowly. It updates super slowly. It's a pain in the ass to navigate the PS3 store on there. It sucks. But when it comes to what it had to offer as far as its lineup of games, exclusives from PlayStation, the only reason we got there to begin with me having positive feelings about the PS3 at the end, was because Xbox kicked the shit out of PlayStation at the beginning of that generation. They had a whole year on PlayStation, and they already, right out of the gate, had Gears of War, which was cool as fuck. Meanwhile, you had PS3 releasing in 2006 at $600 for the bigger version of it, and just having really poor exclusives. And so PlayStation got their teeth kicked in by Xbox because of good competition, and then they had to really struggle their way back in order to get back into people's good graces by the end of that generation. Having competition forced them to be better. That's why we got the PS4. The only reason PlayStation is in the state that it's in now, with how popular they are, with how much of a market share they have of the casual console people out there, it's because of the dirt they got kicked in their face by Xbox. And so they got hungry. They got their backs put against the wall. They had to cut prices. They had to put more effort into releasing better exclusives. That's why we got Uncharted 2. That's why we got God of War 3. That's why we ended up getting things like Journey, The Last of Us. It's because PlayStation had to in order to survive. That's why competition is good. That's why I don't like to see Halo go to PS5. Because Xbox is ceding so much ground to PlayStation. And then I see these people going like, well, shit, like, this is bad because PlayStation's going to have no competition now. Yeah, whose fault is that? And dude, PlayStation is lucky as shit that Xbox was so incompetent this generation and fumbled the ball so hard when they were at the goal line. They were right there. And the reason I say PlayStation was really lucky that Xbox was that much worse is because this generation could have done really badly for PlayStation if Xbox had actually had their shit together and was actually making like really awesome exclusives on a consistent basis. Regardless of what I personally think about some of the more highly rated games they've released this generation, I'm willing to bet that if they had kept those on Xbox, there'd be a better shot at them actually like gaining some ground on PlayStation and then gaining positive momentum. It still would have been very difficult because of the digital libraries that people would have accumulated on PlayStation by this point. But it's like, dude, you're not even trying anymore. You're not even trying. You're just walking away. And that sucks. So, a console war with just Nintendo and PlayStation doesn't sound interesting. It's not even a war at this point. It's like because PlayStation and Nintendo have like two completely different philosophies as far as what their consoles represent. And this is why I say like it really was for a long time just PlayStation versus Xbox. And the thing is, like, if this sounds like some console war bullshit, if somebody listens to this and kind of rolls their eyes and goes like, "Oh God, here's this guy console warring," I would argue that this facet of the console wars, where it's PlayStation and Xbox trying to one up each other, I'm not talking about the fanboy shit that happens on Twitter. I'm not talking about like the really like annoying, like toxic shit on there between these delusional fanboys. I'm talking about the economic console war in quotes between PlayStation and Xbox, the business war. That was good. That was a good thing because it created better things in the end, or at least that was the original intent before Xbox just, I don't know, just fucking laid down and died over the course of 12 years. And then showed some signs of trying to get back up and fight, and then they just took a fall. It's like, that's it. But it's only a matter of time before they put it on the Switch. I'm really surprised more games aren't on the Switch from Xbox, because I remember that being a big thing during the FTC trial, where Phil Spencer was talking about how they're going to be supporting the Nintendo Switch more. And granted, they do have some things that are on the Switch, but it's there's no call. I thought Call of Duty was supposed to be on the Switch too by now. I figured we'd get more exclusives coming over from Xbox to Switch, but I don't know. And again, it's like it speaks to how stupid um Xbox is in that, like, I guess they want to make all this money, but then they don't want to put their games, or at least like the games that would make sense on the Switch too. They don't want to make those and then put them on there. Like, if I was in charge of Xbox, if I was in Phil Spencer's position and I had some say over what got greenlit and what we should do, dude, Banjo-Kazooie. Like, I know people are probably sick to death of hearing that Xbox should be doing Banjo-Kazooie, but if they're gonna go this route where they're gonna start putting things on the Switch and the Switch 2, why not make a new Banjo-Kazooie? Do you know how much that would sell on the Switch and the Switch 2? Just from like name recognition, like legacy alone. Like, I don't, even these like multi-platform, some of these multi-platform strategies just don't really make a lot of sense to me, or like they just completely lack insight. But oh yeah, you meant Switch too. Yeah, but I mean they have put some stuff on the regular Switch, but they had the biggest indie library too at the time. Yeah, well that's the thing, that they can get away with making smaller games for the Switch and the Switch 2, and those actually sell to a lesser extent on PlayStation, but they had to claw their way back to the top. Yep, Xbox had everything and they just threw it away. Shat the bed. Let's also not forget that Banjo-Kazooie started off on Nintendo 64. Yeah, that's what I mean. Is that like Nintendo and Banjo-Kazooie have such a rich history together that, to me, it just makes a lot of sense making a new Banjo and putting it on everything. And it's going to do really, really well on Switch and Switch 2. But again, Microsoft just doesn't want that. They want Call of Duty. They want Minecraft. They want Candy Crush. They want, it's another big thing for them. Overwatch, Forza, Elder Scrolls, Fallout, stuff like that. They just want the big heavy hitters. Which again, it makes me very concerned about the future of this platform. I mean, whatever future Xbox is going to have. Because now they're starting to go on the PR tour again, talking about how, and I have heard this before as well, and dude, anytime Matt Booty opens his mouth and says something, I just groan. Because I just like any of these three, like Phil Spencer, Matt Booty, Sarah Bond, anytime they open their mouths and say something, I just go like, ugh, oh my god. But I find it funny, like bitterly ironic, that Matt Booty is saying this, that like, oh, our biggest competition isn't another console, it's TikTok and movies. That's why we're doing a multi-platform push. You know? That's why. That's why Halo is coming to PlayStation. And this is also the same man who said these like leaked emails internally at Microsoft that they were doing these moves to spend PlayStation out of the business. So this guy internally went from PlayStation is our prime competition with these moves to PlayStation is not our competition. It's like, okay. And another thing I want to talk about is this, where this has been now, because Xbox is getting out of the traditional console space and they want to focus more on premium systems, which is basically just PR speak for a PC that's going to have the Xbox logo slapped all over it. They're starting to do the thing that I don't know how many of you guys are fans of Red Letter Media, but there was a video that they put out a long time ago that made a case that more entertainment companies are going to try to market their products more and more to more hardcore consumers, but charge a lot more in order to make up the losses that they would have trying to market to a more like mass audience. And in the case of Red Letter Media, what they were talking about was seeing Star Wars in theaters, where they would, where he, the where Mike from Red Letter Media, he was making the case that movie theaters are basically going to turn into these like big premium things that only like the most hardcore fans go to watch the latest Star Wars movie, and they'll charge like $30 a ticket for the premium experience of going to a theater and watching a new Star Wars movie. That kind of thinking is what I see in this, where they're going to create a much beefier console like hybrid system that supports PCs and PC games and different storefronts, and they're going to lose out on the mass market console enthusiasts people, but in order to make up for that loss, they're going to try to charge more for this new premium system that is very beefy spec wise. It's going to be more powerful than the PS6 because the PS6 is going to try to aim for something less as far as like specs and consoles, because the difference is that PlayStation is crucial to Sony's business. They do not want to fuck with that in any big way because that is the number one selling thing for Sony. It's PlayStation. Far and away, PlayStation is the most important thing for Sony. For Microsoft, Xbox is maybe like the second or third. Before the Activision Blizzard deal, it was maybe like the sixth or fifth thing. But now they're going to try to make a very expensive PC console hybrid, probably charge about, I would imagine somewhere between like $1,000-$1,200 for it. Try to get the enthusiast market in there, the people who are willing to spend that amount of money. Get a lot of money from those people, funnel them into Game Pass, charge them a lot for that, and that's how they're going to. I don't think they're going to have another console beyond this. I think they're just going to fully. I think they're just going to fully like give up after this generation. I'm kind of surprised they're even bothering to make a new console at this point. But I get it just from the perspective that people they don't want people to lose their libraries. I get that perspective, and that would create a massive uproar from the people who do primarily play on Xbox. But as far as the generation after next, I just don't see a future for Xbox. I really just Xbox is basically just going to become another label that's slapped on a PC, and it's just going to be a Microsoft machine, and we'll call it from there. But I mean, it's pretty bad when rumors get spread that your console plans are up in the air and people believe it. Because I never believed the rumors that were going around that Microsoft wasn't going to do next gen hardware, which I knew they were. I was like 100% convinced that they were going to do that. But that says a lot when the rumors go out there and people go, that could be believable. Meanwhile, if the rumor came out that Nintendo wasn't going to do a Switch 3 or PlayStation wasn't going to do a PlayStation 6, you'd be like, no, that's not going to happen. They're going to do that. That's like, no, that's a stupid rumor. Right. Because they are console manufacturers. They have healthy ecosystems. They don't have plans that change like at the drop of like the wind blows another direction and Xbox changes its plans of what to do and what to market and what to say and what to tell their apostles to go out and preach the gospel about Xbox and Phil Spencer and Matt Booty and Sarah Bond and all those guys. But with Xbox, I don't know. So let me read some of these comments and then we'll get to the Halo video, which is going to be the final bit for this. So Are executives really this delusional? Do they really have that big of a boomer mindset? I wouldn't be surprised if they were boomers. It's not the thing is with this particular case with Xbox, it's not the boomer mindset because a lot of the people that have ran Xbox, I would say the vast majority of people so far have not been boomers as far as like the core leadership. People at Microsoft possibly, but I think it goes beyond boomers. I think it really goes into this corporate bubble. And I talked about that in the Quantic Dream video, where there is this thing that exists where people just these like big people that make these big billion-dollar decisions. They live in this very insulated bubble, and they don't a lot of them do not have a good ear on the ground for what's going on in like the streets as far as just your average person. And that was unfortunately taken to its extreme at Xbox with Don Matrick when he basically tried to push the Xbox One less as a gaming console, but more as an all in one entertainment device. Because he probably looked at some charts at Xbox and saw that a lot of people were using their Xbox for multimedia, for things like movies and TV shows and stuff like that, and saw those charts without understanding any context behind those numbers and what happens, with like in your average Xbox owner and stuff like that. He probably saw those charts and went, you know what? It's going to be really cool for the next generation after the 360. Make it a box where you can play TV, you could hook it up for your cable, and it's your all-in-one entertainment system. And like, yeah, it plays games, but it's more going to be like entertainment box. And internet is the future, so we're gonna go all in on DRM, and you can't lend your games you can't let your friends borrow your games physically without activating something or paying extra for a license, or you can't trade them into GameStop unless it's at a participating thing, and then shit like that. That's the kind of mindset. It's not the boomer mindset. It's this very insulated corpo mindset that gets you to decisions like that, and that was what basically really sunk Xbox's battleship as far as long-term viability, was that. Because if you go back, and it's fascinating to go back and watch that Xbox One reveal event, because that is basically like that is how we got to this image here. That is how we got to this. Don Matrick presenting the Xbox One, saying things like, unfortunately, we have a product for those who don't have internet, and it's called the 360. That kind of stuff. That is how we got here. That was the genesis. That was the rock that started the avalanche. The 12-year-long avalanche. And here we are with this image representing how far Xbox has fallen as a console brand. But just get rid of the Xbox logo at this point. It's not even Xbox at this point. Well, that's the thing. It's like, this is what they've been trying to pivot. What even is an Xbox? Because their big marketing push is trying to tell you that everything is an Xbox. They want you to think your phone is an Xbox because you get access to games on that. They want your PC to be an Xbox because you get games on that. Now they want your PS5 to be an Xbox because they're putting their games on that. And it's such a weird, confusing marketing message. And it basically becomes like The Incredibles, where Syndrome goes like, when everybody is super, no one is. So if everything becomes an Xbox, what even is Xbox anymore? Outside of like a platform. And it's not a console brand anymore. So again, like you said, Richard, I don't know why they continue to just call it an Xbox. It feels cruel. It feels cruel to call it an Xbox at this point. It's like you're really just kicking your like most loyal fans in the teeth over and over and over and over again. These past like few years in particular. I mean, like I said in the I forget which video it was, but I said, what do Xbox's most loyal people get at the end of the day? they get a dying console brand that's morphing into just a generic blob that's everywhere. And you get to see games that were promised to be exclusives go on rival platforms, like the number one rival platform to Xbox. Because it was funny, like I remember when that original business update happened last year, at the beginning of last year, and they talked about, you had that the podcast, the business update podcast, where Sarah Bond, Matt Booty, and Phil Spencer were sitting on that stage in their chairs talking to the one lady that used to work for IGN that works at Xbox now, and they were talking about how they were trying to like calm the flames of the Xbox community by telling them, it's only going to be these 4 games for now, guys. And like I think anybody knew watching that where this was going. But I remember telling my friend at the time, who was my manager. He's still my friend to this day, but he was my manager at the time. One of my old jobs. And I remember telling him, "Hey, did you hear that?" Because he has a Series X, and I told him, "Hey, they're gonna start bringing Xbox exclusives over to PlayStation," and he goes, "Oh, cool. When do we get God of War?" Like the first thing that came out of his mouth, I'll never forget this. He said, "When do we get God of War and The Last of Us?" And I went, "Oh, you don't." And he was like smiling, and then he kind of went like, like he had like a grim face after that. He's like, "What the fuck?" So like, wait a minute. So like, why does PlayStation get Xbox exclusives, but Xbox doesn't get PlayStation exclusives? I'm like I don't know, dude. That's just how this is happening. Now, there may come a day where PlayStation puts their games on Xbox. Maybe, like in the far future, possibly. They might do that, especially with how successful Helldivers 2 was on Xbox. Unfortunately, I can see it, but I'm going to be just as pissed off about that as I am about Halo going to Xbox. Like, I'm not going to come here and say, like, oh, yeah, that's a good thing that God of War is going to Xbox. It means more people will get to play it. No. you're not you're not going to see me. You're not going to see me do that. Hell hath no fury like me if they decide to bring God of War and Horizon and The Last of Us to Xbox, because that is like such a complete dilution of their brand at that point, and I will hate that. But yeah. Oh, hey, RJ Emerson. Looks like I'll finally get to play Halo for the first time. Well, not the best version in my opinion, but with Xbox, they're shooting themselves in the foot, especially in this economy. That's the other thing, is that Xbox is telling people that they're gonna be making a premium tiered console that's like probably 4 figures. They're telling people that they're raising the prices of Game Pass. They're raising the prices of consoles. They're raising the prices of dev kits. Like, brilliant. That's a brilliant strategy. Absolutely brilliant strategy. So, anyway, the final segment before we sign off is I wanted to take a look at the footage and just kind of talk over it of the Combat Evolved remake, where again it's I would say it's like generically pretty. Like, it's a very like beautiful looking game, and Master Chief, the model here, looks a lot better compared to the UE5 tech demo they showed off a few years ago. But there's just something about Bungie's original arts direction that I find like so iconic. And like right away, you can tell, like right away, there's like a hitch in the frame rate. If you go back and watch carefully. Right there. Like right away in that that cutscene. So that tells me that this is not going to be a game that will escape the UE5 stutter curse that engine seems to have. And I don't care what kind of things they put at the bottom, like pre-release build. Like, This is an Unreal Engine 5 game, and it's being co-developed by 343, and I believe the rumor is a Virtuos owned studio. And Virtuos are the team that just did the remakes for um, Metal Gear Solid 3 and Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion. And a big problem with those games was the hitching in frame rate because it's Unreal Engine 5. A big problem, particularly for Oblivion remake. With Halo, considering it's a fast paced first person shooter, that is going to be completely unacceptable if they start, like, people boot this up and it's like hitching like every like 20 seconds in frame rate. Like, this needs to be like a 100% like flawless presentation as far as UE5 goes. But something tells me that's not going to happen. And I don't know when this game is coming out. I'll grant them that they still have time to fix it and what have you. But it just, already I look at this and I'm like, I don't know, man. Like, I don't know. And then I'm not really crazy about the UI changes in this. You'll see with the Needler in a bit that it's got that, I said at the beginning of the video, it's got that stupid ammo counter on it, when the whole point of the Needler, the way it's designed, is that you can see the individual needles on it. So, like, if you're not a dummy, you can figure out how much ammo you have left and when you need to reload the Needler. But another thing that I'm very curious about with the Halo remake is that those prequel campaign missions, where I am very against 343 writing new campaign missions for Halo CE. And I, especially with, like, considering how bad the writing is in 5 and Infinite, I don't know who the writers are going to be, but I look at that and I'm like, do I really want 343 writing original missions for Combat Evolved? Like, and I don't think the writing in Combat Evolved is this like amazing Shakespearean work of art, but like, there's a big difference between how Bungie writes, like the old classic Bungie wrote, and how 343 writes. It's a big difference between the two as far as quality. So, and then also them changing things like I'm not, in theory, I'm not against them changing things like the library, where we're going to like change how that works, where they might redesign some of the later levels, especially when they start to repeat segments from the beginning of the game. But I don't know. I kind of would have preferred they just put the Master Chief Collection on PS5 and called it a day from there. But see, look, like, look, there's the whole point of the Needler is to know, like, this is like a small thing, but it bothers me. It speaks to their like philosophy, 343's philosophy. It's like the Needler has needles, you can tell, and then they have the stupid ammo counter like down here, and then they have the stupid ammo counter like over here. And I'm like, guys, like, that is so, they have like 2 ammo counters, in case you weren't aware. In case like this wasn't enough, they have to have the ammo counter down there for the Needler. It's like, Jesus Christ. Oh. Again, a small thing, but it's missing. Were 5 and Infinite's writing as bad as Insomniac's with Spider-Man 2? Ooh, it's a good question. I would say Halo 5's was worse. Halo 5's campaign is like the worst. I would argue Halo 5's campaign is the worst in Halo history. I hate that campaign. I would say it's probably on par with, like, Infinite's is on par with Spider-Man 2 from like a character interaction perspective, it's definitely there, like that bland and generic. But at least Spider-Man 2, like, I don't know, because you can, Halo Infinite has a really weird story, and by weird I mean completely just like just sloppy, where they introduce the potential main villain beating up Master Chief in the beginning of the game, and then Master Chief, like he and Master Chief get separated, and then Chief finds out later that the guy you thought was going to be the main antagonist of the game that beat him up dies off screen, and then you have to fight his lackey instead as the main villain. And then that lackey gets killed near the end of the game, and then there's a new villain that comes in as the final boss. And then in a post-credits cutscene for Infinite, the villain that beat up Master Chief in the beginning is alive, and he's apparently going to be part of the DLC for the campaign that was eventually canceled. So at least you get to fight Venom as the final boss, and Spider-Man 2, you get to fight Kraven as like a boss at some point before he's replaced by Venom, like the real villain you came there to see. Um, is the storytelling in Spider-Man 2 good? I would argue not, but it's more consistent as far as structure than Infinite's is. Definitely more than Halo 5. And the thing too with 343, with how they designed their trilogy, is it feels like every game that comes after is kind of like an apology for the last one. And it's like each one is trying something different, but like in a bad way, where there's just no thematic or like tonal or gameplay consistency between the three. Where 5 does not play like 4 and Infinite does not play like 5. And each story feels like an apology for the last thing. Where Halo 5's campaign feels like an apology for Halo 4, and then you have, or it's like, oh, we killed off Cortana. Oh, never mind. No, we didn't. Now she's a villain. Oh, sorry, you didn't like that Cortana was a villain. Oh, we killed her off again. Off screen before Halo Infinite. We're sorry. We're sorry you didn't like that, where we were going with that. That was pretty bad. Let's end it. Let's not follow through on anything we do. And this is why when people go like, why don't you trust, they're not 343 anymore, they're Halo Studios. It's like, dude, no. No. I don't trust this team with Halo. I don't even care that they've like fired a bunch of people from 343 and they've replaced it with new people. I do not trust this team under Microsoft to do right by Halo. Like, to me, Halo has not been good since Reach. That was the last time I actually really enjoyed a Halo campaign. And ironically, like coincidentally enough, it was the last one that Bungie worked on. Would I trust current Bungie to make a good Halo campaign? Probably not, considering what they've become. But to me, it's kind of like, this is why I just don't trust Xbox. Like, they just have such bad project management. Because they have just they have found a way to just systematically strip Halo of its cultural relevance and make it where they now have to bring it back or give it a comeback by putting it on PlayStation 5. That's like if God of War, like after Ascension, they tried revitalizing God of War with 2018, but their whole marketing push was putting God of War 2018 on Xbox and saying, hey, God of War, that's relevant again because it's on Xbox. And they're trying to do the novelty of that. But yeah, I just don't, I really don't, I just don't like, there's just something about this remake that just doesn't sit right with me. Like, it looks like like mechanically and generically, it looks like on a base level, it looks like functional, like it's gonna work. But there's just something about it that just like, it just feels very hollow to me. I'd rather they had just put Master Chief Collection on PlayStation, called it a day. But I don't know. I was like, it reminds me of them. Like, look, guys, we've remade The Last of Us on PlayStation. It's like, okay, like we've remade Demon Souls. We've remade Shadow of the Colossus. Like, yeah, okay. Like, sure, it looks prettier, it looks better, but is this really necessary when you could have just ported the original game? You have a port studio. You have multiple port studios at your disposal. You could have just done that, given it a new lease on life. But again, it all falls under this like obsession with making like pretty graphics, and that seems to be a big priority with this remake, instead of retaining the original art and giving it that like that typical UE5 sleek look with the like inconsistent frame rate and stuttering and whatnot. But I know I sound super down on this remake, even though it's like this is the first time we're seeing it. But this is just my honest opinion of it. And that's hopefully what you come here for. You don't come here for me to like glaze a Halo Combat Evolved remake and go, look, guys, I think you need to go out and spend $40 or $50 or however much this is going to be because it's Halo. Nah, like I'm nah. But anywho, this is closing out of talking about Xbox and Halo. I will say, like, the one thing that I will say about this, like this Halo Combat Evolved remake, is that I would assume it's going to be a big success on PlayStation. Because, like, strangely enough, Gears of War, like, Gears of War did okay on PlayStation, but it didn't do, like, Forza numbers, from what I understand. It did fine, but not, I don't think what, like, Xbox was kind of hoping for. This is going to be a mega hit on PlayStation, just on, like, pure novelty alone. And I guess that's a good thing if they want to try to get Halo back into cultural relevance. But again, it's just really sad that Halo is at a state where they have to try to give it more cultural relevance by bringing it to PlayStation. Like, it makes me sad. It really does make me sad. I know people probably think that's silly, that it's like some console war bullshit for me to go. It kind of makes me sad to see Halo and then see the PS5 logo under it, but it does. I'm not gonna lie to you guys that it's like I feel great about this. This is exactly what I wanted. No, it's not what I wanted. But anywho, that's all I've got for today. If any of you guys want to chat for a little bit longer, I'll be happy to chat just because I got a little bit more time before I gotta go. I can also tell that my voice is my voice is reaching its limits as far as like talking for this long nonstop. But if you guys have any comments in the chat, I'd be happy to talk a little bit more. Just let me take some water while you guys want to type anything. So this is a remake of the first game in the series. Yes, so it's a remake of Combat Evolved, but they're going to be adding in new prequel missions. They're going to be bringing in weapons from later games, and they're going to be reworking certain levels. Like, I imagine, because a lot of I don't know how familiar you are with Halo, RG Emerson, but Combat Evolved, I would say, is easily the weakest one of the original trilogy. And that's a big reason for that is because a lot of the levels in the second half are just reused from the first half. So, and like Combat Evolved is like hugely influential, fun as hell game. Rock solid combat. Fun as hell first person shooting. But level design, that's one of its biggest weaknesses. And if 343 thread the needle to where they could actually get it like a rework of some of those later missions, like the library, which is a notorious level for being kind of like confusing to navigate. Before they added, I think they added in like arrows in the anniversary edition of Combat Evolved. But yeah, it's a to answer your question, it's a remake of the first game. And then I assume if this does well, they're gonna do 2 remake and 3 remake because that's I don't know, that just seems to be I can just see this how this is gonna play out in my head, and I'm like, yeah, they're taking a page out of PlayStation's book with this one. I'm surprised we got a Combat Evolved remake before we got a God of War 1 remake on PS5. I'm really surprised by that. But ay, ay. Oh, Microsoft. oh, Microsoft. That's just I don't know. I felt kind of bad too because what's funny is like Richard texted me last week. He's like, are you interested in doing a podcast?" This is before a lot of this started getting announced. A lot of like the recent quotes are coming out from Matt Booty and Sarabon about console exclusives being antiquated. He's like, are you interested in doing a podcast about Xbox?" I'm like, no. I thought I said everything there needs to say. And then all of this comes out, and I go, oh, never mind. Here we are. And rather than just making it a very long video, this is basically might as well make it a live stream so I could talk to you guys while I do it. And then I originally was gonna make Silent Hill F the Halloween video for this year, but I haven't really come up with many notes for it right now, and I don't know when I'm gonna be able to record it. But I might. Originally, it was the plan to make that the Halloween video this year, but I might miss the deadline on that one. I still am gonna do a Silent Hill F video because I do have things to say about it, but I just need to. I need to like really just jot some notes down and then get it going. But if I don't make it for the Silent Hill F video this year with Halloween, then you can consider this like the video for the week, basically. Interactive video for the week. Yeah, my knowledge of Halo is surface level as you can get. I heard the second game was super good. Yeah, the 3 is my personal favorite, but 2 is excellent. 2 and 3 are definitely much better than Combat Evolved, in my opinion. I would actually be curious to see what they could do with Halo 2 because it feels like the climax of that game is pretty rushed because as we all found out later, Bungie did cut content from the second half of Halo 2. So it'd be interesting to see what they could do if they were to go in and add in like a new level just to kind of beef up the pacing of that game, give it more of a climactic feel. But anyway, that is all I've got for today. So thank you to everybody who came by. Thank you, RJ Emerson. Thank you, Richard. And thank you, David. So that'll be it for today. Hope you all have a lovely rest of your day. And thank you all for coming by. And I will talk to you all next time. Have a good one, everyone. Take care.